I know somebody personally. I know somebody who stays in these gaming cafes. I'm not exaggerating. For a whole week, he doesn't leave. And when I say for a whole week, meaning he doesn't take a shower. You can imagine the smell. We would actually take turns to take him home, just to take a shower, dress up, and come back again to continue his gaming.
Wow.
And it was so bad that even the owner of the cafe would give him free food. The guy left his work. He had a very good job. And he was an old man, an adult who had kids, who had a wife, who had a family. And he left all that for some virtual fable world that really means nothing.
Welcome back. Today we're going to be addressing afflictions and addictions amongst the Muslim community. What is an addiction and what is the effect of it, and are there any solutions? Today joining me we have Faris Al Hammadi, and we have a usual face, Ismail Bullock. So let's get into this topic straight away. Addictions, what are they? Do they exist amongst the Muslim community? Is it a real thing, or is it just a mental disorder?
Yeah. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. Muslims, just like any other human being, they will suffer from certain effects and negative things in their lives. And yes, addiction is part of the Muslim community or the nation. That's true. But what is addiction? A lot of people maybe don't understand what addiction is. No. And just recently, there've been a lot of debate about addiction, whether it is a crime or a disease, a disorder. Mm-hmm. And the latest update, the latest studies and the research suggest that addiction is in fact a disorder. Addiction, let's be specific here, drug addiction, or the more scientific term to it is substance abuse disorder. And the definition of it is briefly saying it's a chronic, relapsing, bio, psycho, social, spiritual, they added spiritual recently, disorder.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a mouthful, that is.
Yeah. So the there's a biological effect to the body when somebody's addicted. And there is a psychological effect. There's a social effect. And last but not least, there's a spiritual effect. No. And we have seen that it's very evident that addicts or patients that are suffering from substance use disorder, their spirituality, you could say, is very much affected. I've dealt with a lot of addicts on a personal level. Yeah, I had a lot of friends and people I know, and they're dear to me. They've been suffering from drug abuse, and so I've dealt with them on a personal level, and I know how they feel and how they act and all these things. One thing about addiction, people think that this is something that is new. As a matter of fact, archaeological findings have mentioned and documented that it was drugs basically have been used, or maybe we could say misused, even at the time of the pharaohs. Yeah, we've seen the marijuana kind of leaf and all that, and they would use it. And it was used by the high standard people, the higher standard of the community. They would use such things. There's a lot of theories about addiction. Why do people actually use drugs in the first place? There's one theory that says it's just genetic. People it's part of their genetics that they have this kind of addiction gene.
Really?
Yeah.
Inclination to want to do things and get busy.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be drugs, it can be whatever it is. They just have this obsession or addiction to do something, to use something or abuse something.
Like they have something like lacking, maybe? Like something they need
perhaps
to provide a missing for happiness, something.
Yeah, something like that. Perhaps that's one of the reasons is why this is a gene or something. And another theory is that, and this is something that I'm just stating theories here, of course, is that it's part of evolution.
Okay.
Yeah, this is part of the highest drive or part of the evolution stage that humans now seek absolute happiness. And so it has become part of what we are today, and we have to accept it. Of course, we have our say in evolution, which we don't need to get into that.
Yeah.
But it's a theory. And another theory is, like I said, and this is the most accurate one, is that it is a biopsychosocial spiritual disorder. However, I have to say that it could be a crime at the beginning, but later it becomes a disorder. Because it's problematic if we straight away say it's a disorder.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then we have to get into the discussion of, is it haram? So it's not haram. So he's a patient.
It's a patient, yeah.
He's a patient. معذور. He's excused.
صح.
لا. We have to also consider that it is a crime, it is haram, it is sin, and then yes, it can evolve into an addiction where you're out of control. And subhanAllah, the word addiction is from the, I believe it's derived from the Roman language, which is enslaved. You're chained and enslaved. And yes, it's a very accurate kind of understanding or
So I guess you
definition
could
to
say
it.
once a person becomes addicted, this is where they have the disorder. Because you're going to get guys jumping on now and saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that.
I'm going to give it
It's
a little
not me,
try.
I'm
and-
sick.
Yeah, I'm sick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
But he has a choice, right? That person has a choice to whether touch it or not touch it, to
Absolutely.
engage in it
Absolutely.
and not engage in it. I think I want to kind of go back a little bit. We mentioned like addiction from the basis of drugs.
Yeah.
Are there any other forms of addiction? Because we've seen nowadays like kids that are in their sleep and they're doing swiping and they're having all these type of effects of you can say disorder because of the fact that they're glued to the screens and the devices and X, Y, and Z. And you'd say maybe that's an addiction in of itself. So does addiction only in drugs or is it in other areas as well?
So addiction is a very dark world, and up until today, there are still a lot of studies being done. They just want to understand the brain. They want to understand why is addiction happening, what's going on. And just in 2018, I believe, the World Health Organization has officially identified that there is in fact something called gaming addiction. So that's with regards to gaming.
Okay.
And I would think, just like what you mentioned, I would think, yes, 100% there will be addiction with social media, electronics, things like that. If you look at it, and all of us, I mean, we've used social media and we've maybe some time in our life played video games. Back then, we're all, I think, in the same generation. What are we, Generation X?
I don't know X, Y, Z. I'm not sure.
I think we're generation of the 80s, right?
Yeah.
We're not
80s,
going to spill out any secret information about your personal life. But
we're
back
80s.
then, when gaming is Tetris or Pac-Man. Or like these,
Pac-Man.
these kind of,
Pac-Man, right?
these things are very
Sonic
harmless. The snake thing, whatever. These are okay. But now gaming has become real life.
It's like a
virtual
real life.
reality.
I saw a report not that long ago where there was a Chinese gamer who actually succumbed to his condition, where he was sitting for 3 or 4 days without any food. His mum wasn't allowed to come in his bedroom. She used to put the food outside the door. He was literally engrossed. And he died in that position.
I've seen it. I've heard crazy stories like in different places around the world where the person, a child, has shot the mother dead.
Yeah, that's
And she banned him from gaming, and he's like 10 or 11, 12. Certain countries where people keep guns, and he went and shot more than once. I think we've heard these stories. That is, if that's not addiction, I don't know what it is, because that child cannot be normal at that time. They have to be psychologically somewhere else. A bit like when we always hear about the drug addicts that they would beat up their own mother to get the next fix.
Exactly right.
This is what is this? If that's the same thing, exactly the same thing.
I know somebody personally. I know somebody who stays in these gaming cafes. I'm not exaggerating. For a whole week, he doesn't leave. And when I say for a whole week, meaning he doesn't take a shower. You can imagine the smell. We would actually take turns to take him home, just to take a shower, dress up, and come back again to continue his gaming.
Wow. And
it was so bad that even the owner of the cafe would give him free food. The guy left his work. He had a very good job. And he was an old man, like an adult who had kids, who had a wife, who had a family. And he left all that for some virtual fable world that really means nothing in reality.
I think this is what really can kind of solidify the theory that it is a disorder when it gets to that level. Because, I also know people from my past and incidents that I've been through that, they would get lost in a world that you just don't understand or comprehend.
Yeah.
And the thing is that we as Muslims, what we normally do when there's a problem arise, we say, Habibi, read Quran, do this, go pray more. But, is that really a solution? I remember once that in my community in the UK, there was a young boy who had some form of addiction, some issue, and he was struggling with it so badly, he just threw himself in front of a train. Wow. And, in the community, everyone was like, oh, we told him to go to the mosque. I was like, you have to identify there's a real problem.
Yeah,
it's not just to be, yes, we know that the Quran is cures and is a miracle and so on and so on, but there has to be other solutions. As Allah, He mentions in the Quran that He's not sent a disease except He sent a cure.
Absolutely.
And there's different cures for things. We have to take paracetamol, we have to take vitamins and so on and so forth. There's a cure for this sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
So the question I have now is like, how do we view this? Okay, it's a disorder, but how do we view this from an Islamic perspective? What is this? What is the way that we view these people?
But first of all, we have to understand the why in order for us to view it and understand it properly. So why do people, in the first place, why do they use drugs? There's a recent report that says that in 2021, there's around, that's what's reported, 293 million people using drugs.
Wow.
It's just using. And there's around 40 million reportedly addicted to drugs. Yeah. So this is the important, why are people getting addicted? Everybody knows that drugs are bad. Everybody knows that's going to ruin your life. Why are you even using it in the first? Why are you getting close to it? SubhanAllah, in our brain, Allah created a system in our brain. There's a part of the brain that is responsible for survivability. And the necessities.
Is that the word, fight or flight?
One of the things, that's the central nervous system. But in the brain, the limbic system, is that it's responsible for all the things that are necessities in life. So food, intimacy with your wife, things like that. And once you do that, it gives you that reward feeling, the dopamine.
Yes.
And that's why you're happy. And when the brain, you do that, it records the whole scenario for you.
Wow.
And then it gives you a memory of that. And so, when you eat, for example, I don't know, what do you like? I like burgers. So I eat a really nice gourmet burger, medium well, with some good cheese and some bacon, halal bacon.
Yeah, of course.
So the atmosphere, the taste, the smell, the person who's in front of me, his face, his smell, the subject that we spoke about, the table, the colors, all this is recorded in your brain.
It's going to be imprinted,
Yeah, and this is what we call in psychiatry or psychology is classical conditioning.
Okay.
Everything is recorded in your brain. Now, sometimes when you see that, your brain clicks again. Oh, I remember that time when we had this dopamine. It's like a little baby. I want that again. So you start craving it. And that's why it starts sending signals to your mouth or your tongue, and then the saliva starts moving, and you're like, I want that.
I remember this happened to me the other day.
Is your saliva going down?
Yeah. I'm thinking about this burger I ordered, man. It was delicious. And I remember the feeling of, I want that again.
Yeah.
That connection of what you're explaining here, that, innate feeling that I wanted that feeling, that experience again. I wanted to taste those tastes again. It was very profound, actually.
Exactly. So with intimacy, with food, with all these, that's what the limbic system is, one of the things is responsible for. Now, Allah created these systems for us. Don't mess with these systems. Because of drugs, people want this dopamine effect, that happiness effect. And Shaitan is smart. Shaitan promised that I will make them change their khalq. They will change their creation. They will change what Allah created for them. One of the things is the system in the brain. That's changing also.
Wow.
Yeah, we're not talking about eyebrows or your face or some Botox or whatever. No, it's also on the brain. That's also changing. It's a very harmful change. So you have every person Allah created for us. There's a level of dopamine effect that you should handle. And this is life. You're not supposed to go overboard. Just like with eating. If you go lower, you'll malnutrition, you die. Over time. If you go overboard, obesity, diabetes, blood pressure, you die. You just got to stick with the system. That's your level, stick to that. And so is with dopamine is the same effect. Now, what happens is that when you take these drugs, that dopamine goes way overboard. That just crashes. The system crashes in your brain. And it starts recording everything, and then it likes it. Wow, this is a feeling. I've never felt this before. What did you do to me? And so, for example, I'll give you a small example. We're all adults here. Intimacy. Yeah, let's give it from a 1 to 100 scale, happiness or reward kind of feeling. Let's give it like 50. Okay, that's like, wow, cool, you know? When you take drugs, depending on the drugs, the hardcore drugs.
I was saying more than 50. Sorry, I was like, 50 is like middle ground. I was saying more.
Yeah, but 50 is like,
it's high, yeah?
Yeah. 50 is high, it's good. No, I'm saying this is the average, this is expected.
Okay.
50. Now, if you 50 out of 50. 50 out of 50.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's fix that again. The scale is from 1 to 50.
Yeah.
Let's not put it. 50 is too much.
Too much, yeah?
Too much. 40.
Okay,
40 out of 50. Yeah. I'm just giving you a number so you just get the idea. So you take, I don't know, opioid or methamphetamine or whatever, these hardcore drugs. That level shoots up to 150. That's it. Your brain goes crazy. The dopamine just splashes, like goes nuts in your brain. And then when you come back to reality, you're like, wow, I want to feel that again. That's an amazing feeling. And your brain starts to crave it. And now it hasn't reached to a very severe biological level, but it starts to crave it. And you start the classical conditioning. I remember this song, or I remember this person, I remember this seating, I remember this road, I remember the feeling, everything about it. And then you start to crave it. Your brain starts to play with you, and tells you, we want that again. So you go hit again, and you hit the third time and the fourth time, and it's amazing. Then your brain starts to get tolerance.
Yeah. Becomes accustomed to it, right?
Accustomed, and then there's tolerance.
And then you have to go for the next level now.
Exactly. Why? Because it's not reaching 150 anymore.
Yeah.
It's going like 20. You're like, no, I need more. Hit more. Hit more. Hit more. And it just keeps on, the tolerance keep going higher and higher. So you just keep going lower. And then you go into minus 0. You're depressed now. So you start hitting.
Be normal.
Yeah. You want to hit just to be normal.
Yeah.
And everything ruins that. And then what happens is it becomes part of your instinct and your necessities in life. Now, we're normal people. Necessities in life, we know there is spiritual necessities, there is biological necessities, there's social necessities. We got to eat. Sometimes we got to train. It's a necessity for some of us. We got to meet people. Spiritual, we got to pray. We got to fast in Ramadan. This overtakes all this. Khalas. These things are secondary. Primary is this. So everything goes down. Your moral compass gets broken. There's no moral compass. There's no priorities. And you don't care about the consequences. And that's why you mentioned that people would kill, people would steal, people would even sell their own family members for money, anything. You think about it. And so you're not a human anymore. It's
animalistic, right?
Yes, it's pure. It's not even animals would do that. So you become a monster eventually.
You've seen some of those, you guys have probably seen those crazy videos of certain drugs that people take where they're walking around like on the streets like they're actual zombies.
Like zombies, yes.
Literally, they look like a zombie film.
Yeah.
And there's streets in the different countries around the world where these guys walking around and they're just completely finished.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're saying, like in an Islamic perspective, why do people take drugs in the first place? Because you just want to feel happy. That's number one. Number two, sometimes it's a reaction. They're feeling sad. They have some social challenges and they just want to feel normal again. Sometimes people have some like anxiety when they be around people. So I want to take drugs to feel confident, to feel calm. So he would do that. He would go back to drugs. Sometimes it's depression. Sometimes it's family abuse. That can also lead to drugs. Sometimes it's nothing like that. You go to the doctor, you do a surgery, and he wants to manage your pain. So he gives you some painkillers.
Yeah.
Some of these painkillers are actually derived from opioids. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Morphine, tramadol, things like that.
Many of those cases. I knew someone who had a drug problem a long, long time ago, and he was okay for like 25 years. And then he got a bad injury. They gave him tramadol, and he got hooked. He got hooked and he ended up overdosing. No one knew.
Oh, crazy. Did he pass away?
He passed away, yeah.
Allah Akbar.
And nobody knew. They just was found dead in his front room.
It's a dark world, man. So all these things are elements then to understand why do people take drugs. So it's either seeking happiness, either curiosity, either just simply, they're just, painkillers. Sometimes even with psychological drugs.
Validation, it could be like
validation,
pressure,
social things like that. So all these things are piled up, and then subhanallah, I think I need to be honest, if you look at it in such a way, there's no tawakkul. تعلق بالأسباب. You're always attached to the causes. You're always attached to this pragmatic world. I want to fix these problems, but I don't want to refer to Allah. I don't want to seek refuge to Allah. I want to do anything as possible. And we know one of the things about akhadh bil asbab, it's part of our religion. We don't have tawakkul. Tawakkul is you rely on Allah and you don't do anything in life. And Allah is going to feed you and give you. No, this is not what Muslims think. We have tawakkul, which is the reliance on Allah from our heart. We've got to do what we got to do. But with that, there's a shart. What's the shart? That you do what you got to do.
Condition.
Yeah, condition is the condition that you do what you got to do in a halal way. You don't go to haram things and they say, oh, this is tawakkul. So perhaps this is one of the reasons that they don't have proper tawakkul on Allah. They are always attached to the causes. I've known many stories about kids are so pressured during exams.
Yes.
They want to take drugs just to stay awake.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting story about this. Methamphetamine was actually created for soldiers and troops. You've heard about this, in I think World War II, and they just give them to get brave, and they don't sleep for like 3-4 days, because the patient on methamphetamine, he's wild. He's like an animal. He doesn't care about who's in front of him, and he becomes delusional. And so delusion is
a sense of psychosis,
delusional, and so he can kill. He can do whatever he wants. As long as you give him the drugs, that's it. He goes crazy. Allah al-musta'an.
What we're seeing here is that the initial step that person's taken into that action is the step where now he's left the correct action. Like we have halal,
Absolutely.
we have haram.
Absolutely.
We have the clear things that are allowed and things that are not allowed. He's made a decision, or she's made a decision, that I'm going to seek what's not allowed for my solution. Okay, and that's the initial step.
Yeah.
And that initial step has led to another step.
That's by itself. The first step is haram.
So that's
the first violation.
That's the first violation.
Yeah.
Okay, now that human being, on that, as we mentioned, a human being, might be a Muslim, is taking that first step. They're in that cycle now. It felt like it's cured their problem, and now they're stuck.
Yeah.
Well, what are the most common addictions we see amongst the Muslims, and how do we view them when they're in this position? Okay, the first thing we understand, there's something wrong with your belief. Now the imperfections in your belief has led you to do a wrong action. Now you're stuck in that wrong action. What are kind of the things that you've seen from the Muslims in this sort of state? What type of addictions are they? How do we view them, to treat them? What's the kind of solution? Because the solution before is to give
prevention.
Exactly, prevention.
You just don't stay away from it.
Exactly, stay away from it. But now
you fall into
they
it.
fall into it.
Yeah.
What's the outcome?
So, first of all, this is something interesting to mention, is that globally the number one substance that's been used and abused is very interesting. Nobody would guess this, but it is alcohol.
Wow.
Yeah, alcohol is actually scientifically identified as a substance, as a drug. Yeah. And this is beautiful, mentioned in our religion 1,445 years ago, is that كل مسكر كل خمر مسكر, or is it every intoxicant is a khamr.
Yes.
So first of all, the Prophet ﷺ identified alcohol as an intoxicant.
Yes.
And also said not only alcohol, anything that intoxicates your brain is actually khamr. وَكُلُّ خَمْرٍ حَلَالٍ وَكُلُّ مُسْكِرٍ حَلَالٍ أو كما قال, as he said, all intoxicants are haram. And so now they've realized, no, alcohol is not just alcohol, it's an intoxicant, it's a drug. And drugs are intoxicants. So they're all categorized into the same thing.
Okay.
Worldly, it's the most abused substance. Interestingly, in Muslims, it's not the most abused subject. Can you guess why?
Because it's haram.
Exactly. So people will think like it's haram, so I'm going to use other drugs. which is maybe less haram or maybe halal. Some people actually have this
I had this
misconception.
actually. Yeah, I've had this in one of my classes. The teacher was very upset. He was like, we say that khamr is haram, but marijuana is a plant that,
there you go.
That God made. Why is it something it's not mentioned, right?
Khamr is also natural if you want to think about it.
Yeah, I know, but
opioids is natural.
There was a big argument in the class and the teacher got very upset, but the misconception is that, okay, khamr, they think it's just alcohol and everything else kind of has that kind of grey area, right?
Exactly. And subhanAllah, Ibn Taymiyyah spoke about hashish, cannabis. He spoke about it and he said it's worse than khamr. It's worse than alcohol, to be specific. He said it is work. It can even affect your brain. He said that, subhanAllah. Yeah, and we see that today. Let's get back to the questions. Sorry, and then I want to say something about cannabis. So we said, what are the most common one among Muslims? The first one is opioid pills.
Wow.
Painkillers.
So prescription
tramadol
drugs.
kind of stuff.
Yes, prescription.
Wow.
Controlled prescriptions, tramadol,
Fentanyl, these things.
Lyrica, things like that.
Wow.
These are the most
very interesting.
Yeah, most common one. That's number one. Number two is methamphetamine and heroin. I don't know the latest statistics, but one of these two.
I think people,
or maybe equally.
Isn't it? I could be wrong, but I think I've heard that people even like powder up tramadol as well now.
Yeah. They can do that. They're very innovative when it comes to.
But what's really interesting from the fact you just brought to the table is that you can see from the mindset of a person who's trying to avoid haram. It's a painkiller.
Yeah, exactly. Shaitan,
right?
Yeah.
And how shaitan is like, or the devil has beautified something in a very ambiguous way. Like, it's just a painkiller.
You're in pain. Take
it. Yeah, you understand? So it's very interesting you brought that to the table, that's the most common thing among Muslims. That means we have to tread much more carefully.
Absolutely. And there is, alhamdulillah, a lot of Muslim countries are aware of this issue, and they are contacting all the hospitals and the doctors and the clinics that, guys, be careful. We're having a problem here. It can be a problem. And so you need to be very careful. Don't go easy on painkillers. Give them when it's needed. And there are other situations where the pharmaceutical companies are providing painkillers, but they're less potent.
Okay.
Yeah. And so these are, alhamdulillah, some of the things. And there's awareness, of course, among the community. That's preventive measures. And so these are there, alhamdulillah. But it's interesting that, subhanallah, the Muslim, he would stay away from khamr because it's haram. But subhanallah, shaitan got him into another.
And what's really fascinating is that from me coming from the West, the most accessible drugs that people are normally addicted to are cocaine. Cocaine and crack and things like that.
It's not here.
Yeah. So you said straight away heroin and amphetamines, right?
Yeah.
These type of things where I'm from is like, they're the no-go drugs. They're like, the worst of the worst of community society are on those drugs.
These are very available here. I mean, not here, but in the Muslim world, because it's naturally grown.
Okay.
Yeah, it's naturally grown, and
it's not a connection between the fact that those painkillers are from the same root as the heroin itself.
One of the reasons, yes, and accessibility. Yeah, we in this region, in the Muslim world, we don't get cocaine.
Okay.
It grows in, I believe, in South America mostly. South America, in most cases. So it doesn't get here, and it's very, very. It can be here. I'm sure that there are ways, but it's not very easily accessible.
Interesting.
Because it needs to be smuggled from a very, very long, distance. So, but the other ones, it can be smuggled. If you think about it, can be smuggled by land and by sea. Cocaine, it has to be by air, and that's more security. So it's very difficult. Yeah, it's very difficult. It's a whole new world about even drug trafficking and all that. And
so the drug trafficking has actually played a significant role in the type of addictions Muslims are facing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a very tough battle. The policymakers, the people who are fighting this is a very, very tough battle because you don't know where to start. These people are outside. The laws inside your country or whatever country or the region. You can't apply it on them. They're coming from outside. It's a guy who doesn't even know who is the dealer. He's probably the middleman. He's a messenger.
Yeah. And also in that, but what's really significant is that things like the opiates are very addictive,
Absolutely.
very
Kill you.
fast,
Yes.
and they're very dangerous.
Yes.
Depending upon the purity and the way
Absolutely.
they're using it and the type of, it's very, very dangerous. So it's like, it's a compound problem because it's not only a drug, but it's a very addictive drug, and it's a very, what's the word to use? Like when you take it, the hits sky high straight away.
And it kills you.
Yeah.
It kills you. The deadliest drug worldwide is alcohol. Alcohol is if you stop it, if you're addicted to alcohol
And you stop straight away,
you'll die.
Yeah.
You will die. You will start spewing blood, vomiting blood, and it just destroys you. But the catch is alcohol is very hard to get addicted on. The other ones, it's easy. 2-3 hits, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
But the death is slow.
You say the potency is less, right, in alcohol?
Yes, the potency is less. But absolutely, I'm not saying that the other drugs, they're easy or they're like, okay, no, all of them. And by the way, I just want to mention this because this is a drug that everybody looks at as a recreational and social drugs. And this is the worst thing ever, man. This is a trick of the shaitan again, is that cannabis, marijuana, is an okay drug. Just like you mentioned, some people say it's natural, it's from the earth, it's harmless, and they do that comparison. It's better than cigarettes.
Yeah.
It's less harmful than cigarettes. It's nonsense. It will cause schizophrenia to you, psychosis, slow memory, a lot of things. It will mess up your brain. Yes, it doesn't have a lot of biological problems with you, but it will mess up your brain, and it's a gateway to harder drugs.
Yeah.
I remember I knew someone in the UK when I became Muslim, and he said he was a Muslim by origin, by birth, but he wasn't practicing for a while. So he said he used to smoke like every day, a lot of weed, a lot of cannabis, and it affected him like that. He started to have psychotic episodes. He had to go on medicines and stuff. And even he said it's from all that weed I get smoking every day.
It messes your brain and it makes you very slow. Your reaction becomes very, very slow. Your thinking, your everything, it becomes very, like you're driving. Maybe you were on cannabis, and you would drive and a car would pass by. Your brain, your reaction to you have to turn or hit the brakes, it's slow. It's not like a normal person anymore.
Yeah, what they've done in the UK now is that they've introduced that, we had drunk driving, now have drug driving, which is that basically people on cannabis have a machine to test them.
There you go.
And they also have implemented that as a crime.
Some of the questions maybe some of the viewers would ask or wonder, and why is it legalized in some countries? It's business. It's a lot of money in this. Yeah, don't think the world cares about your health.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of money.
If it cared about your health, then alcohol, look in America, and I don't remember the exact year, they tried to put a wholesale ban on alcohol because of the effects on the people.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that led to bootlegging and X, Y, and Z and so on and so forth. So they had to bring it back they didn't have to, but they brought it back to get rid of the bootlegging.
Yeah,
that was all the Bugsy Malone and stuff.
Yeah, exactly right. But
became like the commodity for the gangsters. And
exactly,
the
gangsters, exactly. But they realized that this was actually harming the whole society. But
I think it was like maybe the 40s, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Something like 30s, 40s in America. Yeah, it was actually illegal to have alcohol.
Yeah. I've heard about that. Yeah. Have you heard of the opium war?
No.
Well, that's a big subject. There was opium dens in China, and this was provided by
I do. Yes, I remember this now. Yeah.
Oh, this is a sensitive subject. No disrespect to you, but but to you too, actually. But yeah, it was actually pushed by another country.
Yeah.
That they would make sure that China would have these opium dens, and it would be supplied by that place.
Yeah.
And so China banned it. There was a war. So why'd you ban it? We were losing money.
So it kind of leads us on to the next question, which is that how does society or how does like outside influence really affect the addiction as a whole on the people? Okay, because we have, like you said, there's the wars, they wanted to push it. And I remember like in a long time ago, they treated certain patients with cocaine. Okay.
Yeah.
They used to do it for the dentist. And now they use a similar derivative.
Lidocaine, right?
Yeah. But it's not the same. It doesn't have the same buzz effect, but it has the same numbing effect. But they used to actually use cocaine. And they used to have like what we used to have. My mum has them antiques. They're called snuff boxes. and the aristocrats were keeping their little bit of cocaine, take their little hit. Yeah. It was like kind of normal in society. So how does that impact worldwide or globally drug addiction or addictions in essence?
Wow, it's so many levels. This thing is destructive to the whole world. First of all, it destroys your body health-wise. Yeah, you get malnutritioned, you don't eat well, you don't move well. There's a lot of things that happens in the body with regards to, of course, the brain, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, things like that. Your liver, your lungs, your even your digestive system, many things will happen. I know some of the brothers even, they're young. They got kidney failures. Both kidneys have failed because of their drug use and abuse. And so it really destroys you biologically. Psychologically, like I said, the brain just goes crazy. The whole system goes out. Socially is that you don't have any social life anymore because you're in this dark world. So you get detached from everything around you, your family members, your responsibilities. You're just unknown. Your personality changes. Nobody wants to speak to you. You don't want to speak to anyone. You can't have a conversation with anyone because your brain is always hallucinating. You're high and like nobody wants to speak to you anymore. You know, that's number 3. Number 4 is spiritually. Nobody who in their right mind is getting high and would actually get closer to Allah. It's an act of the shaitan. So obviously that will drive you away from Allah, and it drives you away from Allah. Then you just got to keep on doing it more and more and more. So spiritually, you are losing. Again, it's harming you. Economically, you got no money. You start taking money. You don't generate any money. You got no value in your community. You're sick. The government or the site starts spending on you because of your medication, because of your crime, because all these, the legal system gets occupied with you, what to do with you. And by the way, this is a huge problem because incarcerating someone or arresting someone, it costs a lot of money. What are you going to do with these people? And they're not criminals as in they're going to harm someone, but what do we do with them? So that's another problem. Legally, it's harmful for the community. You got another person you got to take care of, but we're expecting you to generate some kind of value for yourself and for the community. So there's none of that is happening. So economically, legally, socially, biologically, everything, it just destroys and not only that, your family members are all depressed and sad, and we have someone who is an addict. So it just destroys the whole community. Imagine there's 40 million people around the globe. And by the way, this skyrocketed. This was, I think it was 20 million 2 years back, and now it's 40 million. And I would see a trend that it's every year it's increasing and increasing and increasing. And there's a lot of elements that are causing us as in generally to take drugs and to abuse them. Like you said, there is no, first of all, the tablets and the electronics things, it kind of gives you that idea of addiction. You know that all these things are engineered to give you that dopamine effect, pulses. You're just flipping through videos and reels and all that. So that by itself is kind of preparing you to be an addict. You're an addict maybe altogether. Gaming. There's a lot of elements to it that it's used and made to get people hooked and addicted.
Because it generates more money for them.
More money, more reward systems, things like that. And so people are all getting engineered to be addicts. So one way or the other. It's good for business, as they say. Yeah, we got loyal customers now. And yani, if you think about it also, all this, they're preparing you to be an addict. But why are people aslan going to that? Because they lost their religion. Yani, this is one of the main reasons. Is people first of all, they don't understand the necessities of life and what to avoid and what to prevent and what is haram and what is halal. If people are really stuck with what Allah has given them and abide by that, they wouldn't get involved into that. And that's why, subhanAllah, it's a beautiful, and it's a very general statement. When you think about it, when it comes to drugs, it's beautiful. Yani, even when the ulama, the scholars, and this is part of our religion, they say things are halal if it doesn't drive you away from your obligations. Yeah. So can I play this game? Yes. But if it doesn't drive you away from obligation, the remembrance of Allah, then it's halal. If it does, it's haram. No. Anything that leads to haram is haram. Preventive measures. This is in Islam. It's a beautiful system. People don't realize this. They say if it's halal, it's free game. I can just do it and abuse it and do whatever. And then you end up, neglecting all your obediences and your responsibilities. You become a worse person day by day. And so, all this, everything is designed to that, and us just not really getting connected to Islam and understanding Islam will make us like this. Allah al-Musta'an, may Allah protect us all. But subhanAllah, the more I look into these things and how modern kind of technologies and things like that is opened up to us and introduced in our lives, I realize that always Islam is the solution. Islam is the solution. It has solutions to problems we haven't even discovered. It's ready. It's there. You just got to look into it.
Have you found anything from your past that is in line with this?
I was going to say that we see a big problem is if you look at media, the movies, like you mentioned, cocaine, right? That's like the rich man's drug. So that's even done now in
movies
until this day.
They prepare you for that. See, movies even. Yeah,
movies. But even until today, and so in those societies, it's quite normal for them to do cocaine. I don't know. They seem to manage many of them not to get addicted. I don't know how that works, but they still do it. But we see like the movies, the music. Unfortunately now, most of the youth are into all the kind of hip hop and stuff, and that's promoting fornication, drugs.
And this is success to them.
I even found out from one of my sons ages ago that they had this drink that they make. I forget what it's called. They take some kind of like 7-Up. They mix it with something. It's got like a street name for it. I can't remember what it's called. But even it's something they would drink. It's like a mixture of maybe alcohol and 7-Up, and it's always bright colored. So all this stuff is being pushed to all these teenagers, all this youth every day. And we talk about addictions, even like when it comes to pornography, people get addicted to pornography.
Everything is about addiction.
Everything is pushed. If you you can't help, even if you try to innocently use like TikTok or Instagram, you just randomly, there'll be a picture of in Explore or something, a sponsor, there'll be some woman in a bikini. So all this stuff is being pushed all the time. And most people are quite weak, right? So then you see these people, they get addicted to, they want to try these drugs. Their friends are doing it. It's being promoted. It's the cool thing to do. You want to be like this superstar, this Hollywood actor, this famous hip hop guy is always smoking weed everywhere he goes. We don't have to mention his name, but there's a particular one who's doing it everywhere. And he proudly talks about it. So everything is in their face. And all this nudity and we mentioned before how now you hear, you see how this kind of OnlyFans kind of stuff is just gone crazy, and you see it spreading in the Muslim world and people behind closed doors on that platform, and just all this stuff is just pushed in their faces.
Yeah, that's why I kind of like drove that question, is because, from my past, my history, being in the music industry, you can't kind of be in that industry unless you're kind of involved in some stuff.
Well, sorry to be crude, but there's that famous saying we have in the West, right? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Exactly.
So you could put rock and
slogan.
roll, R&B,
exactly, it's a slogan.
Music in general.
It's music in general. And it's like,
exactly.
I remember when I was like in certain, raves or events, and I just see people consuming drugs, just like on another level, it's like, and they're lost to their inhibitions.
Like the sweets.
Yeah, like sweets. And it's just like they're lost to their inhibitions, and that whole thing is about that environment. And I saw that, and I lived that kind of experience, and I realized that when I came into Islam, the preventing factors is what I was focusing on more. How can I prevent going into this situation? How can I prevent being near these people? And that's kind of thing that I had an opportunity to find preventing matters, but do the youth have the people on the platforms giving dawah or knowledge or information that will help prevent them from these problems? Do you think that we're lacking a little bit, because are we underestimating what they're exposed to? Because I remember, like in my city, we did a conference on the dangers of drugs. And it's like the first ever lecture ever in our city. I'm like, why is it the first ever lecture? All of the kids have taken drugs. You understand me?
It's too late.
It's too late. So why I mentioned in the past is because I see a transition from what I was exposed to, what I came into, and how we try to avoid ever falling back into that, because we had knowledge of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Preventive measures is a very tricky subject when it comes to drugs. There was one campaign, this huge campaign in the US that was made. It was called The War on Drugs. Something like that. And in that campaign, the whole catch is that they minimize the use and abuse of drugs. The result was that it was increased. People use more drugs. And a lot of studies have been made about preventive measures that you don't talk about drugs. You shouldn't.
Because
that promotes them. There's curiosity. The kids, what? Don't do drugs? I'm going to do drugs. You know how kids are. They're rebellious. So what they have done is that there are certain approaches to preventive measures that you never mention drugs. You talk about anti-bullying. You talk about things that occupy them with sports, positive things, being with family. These are the preventive measures. Religion. These are preventive measures. Yes, da'wah, as in, preaching, calling to Islam, teaching about Islam. That's one of the reasons, one of the things. So there is a social aspect to it. There is also a legal aspect to it. Respect the policemen. Policemen are good people. The system is good. Because these the drug patients or abusers, they see that the system is against them.
Yes.
And so that's also a preventive measure. Is that no, we're here to help you. The police is here to help to clean the place. So all these things, without mentioning drugs, is what is a very effective preventive measure. And it has to be from it's a holistic kind of system. There's one beautiful, I don't know if you can look it up later, beautiful experience, a project in Iceland. They had a huge problem with heroin, the youth. And they have done preventive measures and corrective measures. And what they've done is they've pushed some policies is that there'll be a curfew, I think around 6 p.m. Nobody would come out on the streets. Streets should be empty. Nobody's out. So that's preventive measures that, usually the drug dealing happens at night. So they stopped that. And then they gave responsibilities to the families that every single family must eat dinner and lunch together.
Wow.
Yeah. Nobody sits in his room isolated, eating, doing whatever he wants. So that's another preventive measure. Family members, if you see anybody outside, you have to report it. So you have to go and patrol. The father and the mother, they have to patrol everywhere to show everything's clean. So it was a huge kind of like national-wide campaign of preventive measure, and it was very, very successful. Other people, other countries, they didn't do preventive measure. They just accepted the whole calamity and they legalized some of the drugs. That increased the drug use, and that made people use other drugs. For this legalization of drug that was going to minimize drug abuse, it doesn't work. It's useless. So like I said, holistic. You have to look at it from many different things, and you have to never talk about drugs, but talk about things that drives people away from drugs.
So how is there any Islamic teachings that can really fix this issue? Because you talked about some of the things like parents being in control, eating food together. We know the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned, peace and blessings be upon him, that eating together, for there's blessings inside of it. Right? Absolutely. He mentioned the narration that everybody is a shepherd and responsible for his flock. So you're mentioning these things, and I've related back to Islamic teachings I know.
Absolutely, man.
So are there any Islamic teachings that we can really focus on to try to fix this issue in our community and wider community?
You see, the first thing that we have to understand is that we have to teach our young kids and the youth of this ummah of Muslims is the first thing is Tawheed. Ibn Abbas was 13 years old.
Tawheed meaning?
Monotheism, the oneness of Allah. Sorry, I get carried away with the lingo, the English terminology.
So Tawheed meaning to single out God the Almighty for worship.
Yes.
In three main ways.
Yes.
In His Lordship, His names and attributes, and your worship towards Him.
Yes. So can we now use Tawheed? No. Since we've defined it. Okay, Tawheed. So the Prophet ﷺ with kids, he would teach them Tawheed. And that's the why in religion. You can't just tell your kids to pray and pray and pray and pray and wear hijab, do this, do that, haram, haram, haram. And you don't understand why. And the Prophet ﷺ would teach his kids why, the children. Ibn Abbas, 13 years old, he would tell him, Ya ghulam, inni uhaddithuka bi kalimat. I'm teaching you some words. I'm about to tell you something that's important. And he said, be observant of Allah, and Allah will protect you. Be observant of Allah, and you will see Him in front of you, as in you will see His blessings and His protection in front of you. And then if you ask Allah. And if you want to seek reliance, rely on Allah. And this is Tawheed. That you said, the oneness of Allah in His Lordship, that Allah is seeing you. And Allah is the one that protects you. And Allah is the one that gives you. And then in return, you have to be obedient to Allah. Don't violate anything to Allah. Why? Because Allah will not support you then. Allah will leave you to these causes that you're running after. So the first thing is Tawheed. And why do we worship Allah? The purpose of life. All these things are intrinsic. It's extremely important to understand these things. And number two is that you have to attach them to things that increases their iman. We Muslims, we understand that iman is like a muscle. You train it, it grows. You don't train it and you neglect it, it goes down. So iman and faith, as in the belief, is like a muscle. The more you do good deeds, the more it grows. The more it grows, the more you hate sin. And the more you hate things that will drive you away from good deeds. Because khalas, your value, your good deeds, your habit is doing good deeds. Salah, reading Quran, doing all these good things, listening to like Islamic lectures, dhikr, being around Muslims, good people, your family members, helping your dad, your mom, things like that. Now, anything that threatens that, you're going to say, hey, no, I don't want
exactly.
that.
It's going to
this is a showstopper. Oh, let's take some pills. What does these pills do? Well, it makes you kind of feel happy and dizzy. And no, I don't want that because I want to read Quran and I want to do my prayers. How am I going to do that? And these are one of the preventive measures. We know that a person who consumes alcohol or any intoxicants, I would say perhaps, that his salah is not accepted for 40 days.
Yes.
What does that tell you? If somebody's about to drink, no, but my salah. See, now the value comes down. What should opportunity cost? What should I put forward? That small dopamine effect that I'm going to get from this, or should I preserve my salah for 40 days? So people leave it.
You know what's really profound about what you mentioned is that you mentioned the purpose of life. And if you look at why possibly addiction is spreading so rampant, it's that nobody understands or values their purpose in this life. And if you ask individuals, and there may be some non-Muslims watching and thinking, okay, this is from an Islamic perspective, but how can I relate to this? It's the purpose of life is to seek the pleasure of Almighty God. That's what we're here for. We're here to worship Him. We're here to do what He's asked of us and to turn away from what is going to make Him angry, right? And most individuals, if you ask them what their real purpose is, they'll give you many answers.
And that by itself is problematic. Do you know?
Exactly.
How and this is weird because you cannot make your own purpose. You just don't, it doesn't work. Like imagine like a cake will find its own purpose. No. Before you were baked, your purpose was made for you. So before we were created, who made our purpose? The Creator.
Yes.
Before you created, He told you your purpose. Your purpose is this. So don't go looking around. So people say, I need to find my purpose. What are you talking about? Purpose is already set. So you just have to accept it. Allah told you, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ. Indeed, I have created jinn and mankind to worship me, to apply the oneness of Allah in the three categories. That's your purpose. You don't have to look anywhere. You don't have to create your own purpose. And people fail to see that.
Yeah, and and it reminds me of something that happened to me once. One of my friends was like, he was talking to me about how I've made a transition from the life that I lived before into this Islam, and it was like alien for him. It was like, we used to be thick as thieves, and how did you leave this and get into that? And I explained to him like the purpose of life. There has to be beautiful. If I say my socks have purpose, I must have more purpose than my socks because I'm more valuable than my socks, right? So what is that purpose? And he was like, I found my purpose. And I was like, what is it? He was like, I took this drug and honestly, I'm telling you, and he's like, and I met God. I saw like in the drugs. And I was like,
that's crazy.
But it comes down to the point that he's searching for purpose in a place that hasn't been legislated for him.
Exactly.
And if you look at all these maybe drug takers or alcoholics, X1Z, they're looking for a solution in something that there never is a solution in.
Absolutely.
And that comes down to the fact is that they forgot the purpose.
It's actually the problem.
That's exactly.
It goes against your purpose.
It goes against your purpose.
But we also have to talk about the corrective measures. and this is very, very important, especially for the people who are maybe fell into abuse, and for the people who are dealing with people who have fell into abuse, patients. First of all, you have to identify yourself as you are having a problem. You're a patient. You have to see that and you have to accept it. If you don't, you're just going to keep on justifying it. No, there's nothing wrong with me. If I can leave, if I want to leave this drug, I'll leave it. It's fine. Yeah, I'm under control.
Yeah.
No, you are under control. You got nothing under control though. But so this is number one. Number two, if you find anybody who is trialed with this and inflicted with this calamity, is that don't shame him or her. Don't shame them. This is part of Islam. The Arabs back then, before it was legislated that khamr, alcohol, was illegal or haram, impermissible, they drink a lot. Some of them were alcoholics, we would say today. And so many of the Sahaba, when it was legislated, almost all of them, I would say, that they left khamr. They quickly stopped drinking. Some of them would drink before Islam, طبعا. And one of the Sahaba would drink and the Prophet would punish him.
Yes.
Comes back again and the Prophet would punish him. Comes back again and the Prophet would punish him because of his drinking problem. And so some of the Sahaba, they said, may Allah curse him. How many times this guy is going to get punished? He's always doing this sin. لعنه الله ما أكثر ما يؤتى به in Arabic. So the Prophet heard that and he criticized, he stopped him. He said, don't insult him. He loves Allah and the Messenger. This is something. Yes, do the corrective measures, treat them. If there is any illegality, they need to do something with the police, with the system, with the government, with the court, with the clinic, whatever. But don't shame him. That's a very, very important thing. We deal with it with sin in Islam, but this is the same thing.
Yes.
So don't shame him and respect him. Give him the respect that he deserves as a human being and support him.
This is very interesting. I want to actually steer away a little bit and ask you a question. That when you were coming into Islam and in your environments that you were in, did you find that the Muslims reacted to you in a sense of like shaming? Like a sense of like, oh, he's a new Muslim, he's falling into certain areas, X, Y, Z. Did you feel that at all?
Not really. Unfortunately, when I became Muslim at school, by seeing some of my school friends pray, they themselves were not practicing Muslims. So they themselves, maybe there probably could have been one or two that were smoking weed. They all pretty much were having girlfriends. So I became the weird one.
Okay.
So if anyone was going to shame, it would have been me shaming, but obviously I didn't. So it would be me, the one who's going like, it's lunchtime. I would go and pray Dhuhr prayer. They would say, we're going to miss the best food in the school canteen. The bell would ring at the end of school. I would go and pray Asr before making my way home. They would say, oh no, we're gonna miss the bus. Even though, in the UK, we don't have those yellow school buses. You have a red bus that comes
every 10 minutes.
Every 10 minutes. So I can't relate to that in the sense of, because not that I wasn't sinning, but even if I was trying to find time to change things, they themselves were doing those things anyway.
It's interesting. I asked that question because, for me, I kind of got a little bit of that shame mentality.
Interesting.
My community that I was in, and was like, they were kind of like, oh, she's not got hijab, he's not got this, why are you not doing that? That type of community. I don't know if you experienced that. And the reason why I asked you is because obviously coming from different background into Islam, a lot of people who are born into Islam, they don't get it, right?
Yeah.
So, and my community was like that. And the reason why I bring that to the table is that, as you said, we shouldn't shame and we shouldn't judge people like that, but rather we should be empathetic.
Absolutely.
I believe in my community that's completely missing where I grew up. Because a lot of the children were committing suicide. A lot of people were, because they had nowhere to turn. And as you mentioned, it's a vital part of correcting this issue is to actually not shame, not blame, not judge, but support.
Support, show love, man.
Yeah, show love. Yeah. And I remember an incident when I was with my family, and there was an alcoholic we have this problem in UK. They've started to make like little metal things on the floor so they can't sleep in the shops. But they were sleeping in the shop. And I went down, I sat down, I could see that the lady was intoxicated. So I brought my wife and I said, and there was some man, he was abusing her. And I interjected and I asked, is there a place we can take you? Can we take you home? And she was extremely shocked my wife's fully covered. She's like, why are you helping me? What's going on? Why are you not, is it not haram? Like, why, is it not something you guys do? She's like a bit shocked. And we're like, no, our Prophet told us the best of you are those who help others. It's not limited to Muslims or you have to be in a certain category. So we were explaining it to this lady, and she was extremely stunned. And then she started to ask more about Islam.
SubhanAllah.
Why are you doing this? Why are you not touching my hand? Why is it your wife is picking me up? Why are you all of it? And it gave us opportunity.
She sobered up.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like she sobered up completely, and it gave us an opportunity to explain the values Islam has. Yeah. And when she was like, "Why would you stop and help me? I'm rolling around the street in this certain way." She was like blown away. And the reality is that I was trying to explain to my wife is that maybe one of us could be there. What would we want if we were in that situation? Absolutely. Someone to start pointing the finger at me, look at me. Maybe, and in fact, it happened to me in my personal life. I needed help, to be honest. I needed someone to come and be a support mechanism for me, to give me some encouragement out of this black hole that I was in. And if I didn't, after the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who knows where I'd be? Yeah. So we have to give that back. You understand me? And not judge people, because it could be one of us, or maybe one of us have been there. Yep. And I think this is really something that we need to spread to the communities far and wide. Stop being judgmental of people. Absolutely. And stop looking down on people like that, and rather offer support and help. Support, help, advice, solutions. Yeah. Okay, he may be drunk. Take him to go and have some dinner. Yeah. Okay, or start throwing haram at him, and he's there. Don't give him money. You'll go buy more alcohol. Don't do that.
Yeah, that's what we always do actually in the UK. Us as Muslims, if the homeless people come up and say, "Can you?" and he's probably an addict of alcohol and stuff. Yeah. We'd say, "Look, I'll come inside. I'll buy you a sandwich." Exactly. And unfortunately, maybe we'll be like, "Wow," they walk off. Yeah, but same. We used to do the same thing in the communities. Like, I'm not going to give you money, my friend. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to go get some food. I'm going to take you to buy some clothes. Yeah. And a lot of them will say, they wanted the money because they're stuck in that addiction. Yeah, exactly. Do you understand me? It's not like their fault, right? Yeah. But a lot of them would actually be like, okay, let's go with them. And, we close some, and it's an opportunity. Yeah. Because I remember one gentleman, he kind of was like, I sat down with him, I fed him, we got some clothes for him. And he was like, why are you doing this? And I was like, to be honest with you, I've been where you were, and I'm just trying to give back a little bit. But for him, it was like, he said to me, if you are where you are today and you was where I was, there's hope for me. He literally said these words. Subhanallah. And I was like, I went away and I was a bit tearful, because the reality is that that's all they need, man. A little bit of hope. Yeah. Some people. Some help, some just hope. A little bit of hope. Like, you know what? I'm here. You're here today, and you was like me, and there's a way out. Because you have to understand that the patient, the addiction that they're feeling distraught, depressed, all of the sadness. No hope. That's it. It's done for me. I'm done for, flat out. And only these they're searching for this drug or this thing they're addicted to make them feel happy again.
And sometimes to numb the pain.
Exactly. Sometimes to numb the pain. But if you can just give a little bit of hope, and I think that's really a strong message to give out, because we are, unfortunately, as human beings, very judgmental. The stigma. There's a very big stigma. He's a drug addict. He's this. He's that. He's a criminal. Exactly. Don't look at him like that. He's a patient. Help him out. Exactly. He's your brother. Exactly. Yeah. He's your brother. He's a patient. Even if he's not your brother, even if he's not Muslim, help him out. Exactly. And we look at sometimes, like, if I've broken my leg and it's clearly I'm in distress, the whole community is going to come and help, and they're going to call the ambulance. But okay, he's a drug addict in the corner on the floor. See, he deserves it. Exactly. No, man, we have to change the stigma, really. Exactly. I mean, obviously, sharing this, how or what ways can we change the stigma in the community? What ways can we share? What support mechanisms are there available that we can direct these people to, and how can we educate the general people into offering this support for others? Well, like I said, it's a biopsychosocial and spiritual relapsing chronic disorder. So first of all, you have to support them in a social way. Your family, your relatives. Don't, like you said, don't shame them. Don't deprive them of their necessity. Give them hope. Give them some value in life. That's number one. Number two, there are, alhamdulillah, there's a lot of studies. They know that there is some kind of treatment for it. Yeah. And so rehab centers, these places, these clinics and centers,
there to offer the help. So reach out to them. Reach out to them and let them help you out. These are the two things. And the third thing is that if there is no kind of spiritual kind of treatment in that center, then you have to also revive his spirituality, his iman, because that's where the hope is. And there's a lot of studies, by the way, about this. There's a lot of centers, even in the West, they have a spiritual program for people who are patients, SUD, substance use disorder patients. They have a spiritual program for them to give them back hope. Whatever religion they do, even sometimes without a religion. They say, they just, you know what they say? They say there's a higher power out there. Just have hope. It's going to help you. It's going to this, it's going to that, you know? So it's very important. Alhamdulillah, we have Islam. Why do you higher power? Khalas Allahu, and we have all the, it's clear cut in detail what is there. And we know this, you know, about hope, is that if you make sin, is it for you? No, we're not Khawarij. Repent. Repent and Allah forgives you. Repent sincerely. Like we fall again. Repent. Allahu Akbar.
Every single time. So, even on Sharjah TV, I saw that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I saw that where it cut it.
It's okay. It's raw.
Habibi, it's silent, huh? I have this thing, app, it just
it's your
overrides.
iman, I think, affecting it. I'm just joking. But anyways.
We can keep that in there and we'll have a new refutation against him.
Yeah, so sorry, going back.
So yeah,
the third thing.
So hope is quite important. Spirituality, there's a lot of studies, it's evidence-based that spirituality, religion helps you heal with addiction. But remember, this is really important. Guys, it's a relapsing chronic disease. It's going to come back. It's like diabetes. You got to measure, you got to just play it as smart as you can to stay away from relapsing. You're going to relapse. You might relapse. And there's a high chance you're going to relapse for the patients. But don't think that's it for you. Just like sin. You're going to sin. Repent. Go back again and go back again. And try harder, different ways until you figure it out for you. And that's the catch about drug abuse, is that it's not like take this pill and that's it, you treat it. No. There's no one size fits all. It has to be a customized program for you. Psycho, social, bio, spiritual. So it has to fit you. What kind of program? What is your treatment plan for you exactly? So some people, their treatment plan can be a big part of it can be fitness. He gets into fitness. He's, okay, I'm good. I don't want drugs anymore. This is my dopamine now. Some other people, maybe it's horse riding. Maybe it's, I don't know, some social affairs. Maybe it's a job. Get them a job. Maybe, whatever it is. Yeah, maybe he needs to get married. His children, gets closer to his children. Whatever it is. So you need to find that value in your life and, cling on to it. And so these are some of the things that you have to be aware. Like I said, this is really important, that relapsing is possible, very, very possible. You just have to take it like a champ and like a sport and be open-minded about it and just go back again.
So I guess from that, we see that it's necessary and in fact pertinent that the person himself has to be open to talk about it.
Well, you have to,
how can we create this kind of atmosphere where we can be open with each other? Because we have this kind of, sometimes we feel like if I'm, number one, we know that we should hide our sins, right? So there's that aspect. And then there's a second thing that, if I tell him,
taboo kind of
it's like the taboo thing,
Yeah.
How can we do that? Because I'm just relating it back to myself, and I'm realizing something for myself is that I, went through therapy when I was a young boy, and I spoke to my therapist. Used to be, that kind of little chair. You're reclining chair, and you sit and you're talking X, Y, Z. So I was used to talking about things anyway. So when I had certain problems, I would say like, bro, I've got a problem, man, help me out.
You're educated because you got informed by it.
Yeah.
So that's a very important thing, is that we need to raise awareness. And I hope this doesn't sound contradictory, but we have to normalize not the disease, but talking about the disease if it's there.
Yeah.
You just talk about it. It's fine. But also at the same time, the other party that's going to be listening and receiving these information, like you all said many times, don't shame, listen and understand and try to fix. So it's two ends. Don't be afraid. People out there, if you have a problem, speak about it. Speak up. Maybe you're going to find some kind of backlash, but you have to speak about it. It's for your own good. Nobody's going to get harmed but you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yes, speak about it. And the other side, also you, be open-minded about it, understand it, listen to him, don't judge. You know, just like with men and women. You wear the hijab and you don't look. Both of you do your
Both
job.
sides,
yeah. So don't put only blame on one side.
Because I just thought about. Sorry, I'll say that again. Because I was just thinking about the point that you made is that there was a person who overdosed who didn't even know. No one know about it. That means that person was struggling to come forward and talk. And I know in the circumstance, in the issue that we had in our community where that young lad, committed suicide, it was because he went to an imam and the imam was like, just go to the mosque, read the Quran.
Yeah,
you know?
that's not.
It's like, there wasn't a platform to talk.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of, something that we can kind of really hit home with. Like, guys watching, who's listening, pay attention, do this. This is going to really affect the world in which we live. How I'm trying to how I was raised in my family is to talk about things a lot.
Absolutely.
Even if it's like, my mum knows pretty much nearly everything I've ever done, even if it was bad or wrong.
That's beautiful.
Because, she gave me the platform to talk.
The trust.
Trust, yeah. Now that's my situation, but there's many people like this
Yeah,
who've overdosed and nobody knew. Many people from my community, where's this guy? Oh, he's died of an overdose. I didn't even know he took drugs, Aslan. Like, how can we break this cycle that we got? What do you think, Ismail?
It's a difficult one. Because if you think about it, you even find the non-Muslims, celebrities who have big circles, have the money to get therapists, and you find that this guy was taking antidepressants, or that woman, I can think of at least 5 or 6 in the last 10 years, and they drowned in their bath because they took the pills to numb the pain, to numb the void in their life, whatever the reason that is. They passed out. They passed out in their bath. They drowned. And there's singers. There's an actor only recently, one of the Friends actors, I think it was. So I don't know. It's a difficult thing. I mean, if they can't speak out with their circle of friends and the money that's available to them to just call a therapist, and we find many of them people say, "Well, we didn't know." Okay, there must be a doctor somewhere prescribing the antidepressants, but I don't know. It's a difficult one.
Strange, man. I don't know if we can do in the Muslim community to break this, because at the end of the day, we have more, we have so many narrations, loving for others what you love for yourself and none of you truly believes. And, being who God the Almighty, Allah is at the aid of his slave for as long as he's at the aid of other people. So many encouragements to be at the aid of other people. And it's not limited to just financial aid or excellent. This is one of the biggest calamities that can befall someone. After obviously losing their faith, but it leads to losing their faith.
Absolutely.
So this means that if you was to help someone and aid someone in that, the reward for it is going to be so high, right?
Absolutely.
It's just fascinating, and I just want to bring it back a little bit to what I felt is that I had some form of quote unquote addictions when I was before entering Islam, and I'm just trying to think of how I got over it. And the thing is that as soon as I accepted and embraced Islam as my religion, as my faith, it was a natural progression. The more I learned, the more I stayed away from this stuff in the first place.
There you go.
The more I fasted, the more I turned away from it.
Absolutely.
Why am I going to break my fast and do that and do this? It just naturally kind of, and I've never, alhamdulillah, praise be to Allah, I've never fallen back into it. And I just think now, I have nightmares, imagine falling into that.
Yeah.
Again, that state of, on a drug or on alcohol, and my prayer's not accepted. What if I died in that 40 days? And, these sort of things. And can we use these as well as preventive matters?
Absolutely, you can. These are one of the ways that you can use and can be helpful, inshallah. Yeah. Another thing is that is it okay? You can speak. Yeah. Another thing is that it's sometimes the fault is on the parents. They police and they restrict their children too much, and sometimes there's abuse, and that can lead to a drug. The first step is that they get detached from their parents. This guy is my dad, my mom is a headache. I don't want to deal with them. I don't want to tell them anything. And so they start drifting away and start seeking security and family in somewhere else with their friends, whatever. And there's where the drug is. So parents, you got to be very, very careful, especially nowadays. And he's sorry to say, but these kids are too sensitive. So you got to be very careful. Show them a lot of love and a lot of support and all that.
That reminds me of your. He had a video which was a classic. He came and apologized after it. I was laughing my head off.
What did I say?
It was like someone was saying my dad chews this much decibel, and he was like, "Oh, my sensory issues." Oh, it was a classic. I was so tempted to record that, But I can guarantee you, there's people out there who make memes on stuff you say.
Oh my God.
That's probably doing the rounds somewhere on the internet. But it was serious though, It was like, I think it's highly unlikely that person is like mentally disturbed. So he's not making fun of somebody. It was literally like, come on, really over the top. Like, I have sensory issues. He chews too loud. Oh my God, I can't handle it. And he was like, like just deal with it. It is a bit crazy now what people say.
It's too much.
And I've seen some of these clips that go and like when there's like public gatherings or debates, and the person who's on the microphone is talking, and the guy says, "Excuse me, you're talking too loud. I have issues with loudness." Oh, it's almost, we don't want to laugh at the people, but the situation is just like, if we were to rewind to like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the things that we see now that go on in life, we would be like this, and it was we would say this is some kind of black comedy movie, like sick comedy. This is not. This will never happen, but it's happening in front of us. Crazy stuff.
I mean, in our generation, our dads they beat us. I get some beating sometimes, but I love my dad. And I know why he beat me, because I deserve it. So what?
You've even got like an Instagram kind of reel now where the guy's saying in the 80s, he gets a slap. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
And then the 90s, like, and then 20s, like, oh. And then 2020, the guy's rolling on the floor and screaming and crying. And
I think these are type of, I say to my kids often, these type of environments that I grew up in and I was in, they really shaped you and molded you to be stronger. And even though I'm sensitive, to be honest, I have to admit, I have this level of sensitivity.
I never noticed.
Yeah. But to a certain degree, the environment shaped us, right? And things are, this environment now is becoming...
It's too soft.
It's too soft to a certain degree where everybody's too sensitive, and something is gonna, that thing that tips them over the edge, which could be something very small, can be the factor that leads them to drugs.
I saw I saw a clip where a guy's walking with another guy who's filming into a library, and the person comes and says to him, "You're not allowed to film in here." And the guy says, "Oh no, he's not filming. He identifies as a camera." And the person, "Oh, okay. That's how ridiculous it is."
Yes.
You should be able to say to them, like, "What are you talking about?
Yeah.
If you do, go and see a psychologist. But you can't come in with that camera in your hand saying identify." Okay, came in.
It's like, I read the report about the doctor said apologize for saying cervix.
What's the
cervix in terms of the woman's anatomy?
Yeah.
She said they can't call it that now. They call it something else because it offends the people who.
Oh God.
Yeah, but that's the reality. We become too sensitive,
too vulnerable, and then too vulnerable leads you to It can lead you to addiction. Can lead you to many kind of addictions.
So, I think if we were to finish up or wrap up on like kind of a closing statement or a closing message, we know that addiction is a real thing. It does affect Muslims. Addictions are different types. What can we give as a closing statement for the audience to kind of reflect over and to ponder over, to take home and to try and make some form of difference?
I would say the first thing is that you have to educate yourself. This is maybe a door. You've listened to this. Hopefully you listened to the whole thing. The whole podcast is a door to tell you that there is a thing that's called addiction and it's serious. And so educate yourself on it. That's number one. We can't tell you all the things in this episode, of course, but you got to educate because it's a whole different world. You have to be observant of your family members. I'm talking about the parents now. Be observant. The parents. You have to be observant of your children. Their reaction, they're moving, the way they're living. Are they people who are always isolated? Are there people that are always secretive? Your children, if they are, then maybe that's a red flag. Are they sleeping too much? Are they not going to school? Are their grades are not? Look at their friends. All these things are elements that can lead to addiction or may mean that he's addicted. So that's a very important thing that you have to understand and be observant of. The third thing is that always teach them the preventive measures that we talked about. So religion, teach them about religion, educate them about these things, values, social, culture, all these things. Get them involved into the society. Don't detach them. If you see someone, even with games, video games, by the way, video games can lead you to a drug addiction
Of course.
because it's an addiction and then isolated and all that. So look at these patterns in his life. Be very observant that you're responsible. كلكم راع. The Prophet said you're going to be held in judgment day and Allah will tell you, what have you done to this kid? It's your responsibility. So you got to start early. The second thing is like what we said, stigma. You know, don't raise that stigma. Bilaks, talk about them. On the contrary, don't be judgmental. Try to understand, try to teach, try to help and support and show love to your family members, to your children. And for the kids, if you're having this problem, come out clean. Nobody's going to kill you. Nobody's going to shoot you. Well, everybody, we just want to help you. Everybody's here to help you. The system wants to help you. Parents wants to help you. The police are not bad people. They want to help you. The doctors are not bad people. They want to help you. So please have the strength and the courage to change this, because I tell you this from experience. This road of addiction only leads to one thing: a miserable life and eventually death. A miserable death. Young. You're not going to live, and you're not going to live a good life, and you're just going to die young. So please come out and fix it. I know it's tough. I know you feel the shaitan is playing with your head. No, nobody's going to accept you. Just be in your comfort zone. Just break out of this and seek help. Seek help from your parents. Seek help from the doctors and all that. And for the people who haven't done drugs, I think this is enough for you to know that stay away from this. Stay away from these things. Allah understand.
Any words from you, my brother? It's the nail on the head, huh?
I think, alhamdulillah.
So there you have it. We'll wrap up here and join us on another episode.